In 1972, The Godfather was released and instantly changed the history of Hollywood. With a budget of just $6 million, the film by Francis Ford Coppola went on to gross $133 million, toppling the record long held by Gone with the Wind. However, behind the glory was a real battle. From threats by real-life mafia figures to terrifying accidents on set. The journey to create this masterpiece was just as thrilling as the story on screen. Are you confident you truly understand the Corleone family? Here are 15 strange events, backstage, offers you can't refuse, that will leave you stunned by how one of the greatest films of all time was actually made. Number 15. The day Hollywood accidentally created a blockbuster. In 1972, The Godfather earned $133 million during its initial release, officially surpassing the record previously held by Gone with the Wind and remaining the box office champion for 3 consecutive years. The film succeeded because of its deep exploration of power, loyalty, and family structure. Rather than relying on massive marketing campaigns, before 1975, movies usually spread slowly through word of mouth among audiences. The Godfather laid the foundation for what would later become the large-scale release model known as the blockbuster. Compared with Jaws, the film that popularized the summer blockbuster with huge advertising campaigns, The Godfather achieved enormous revenue purely through artistic value and storytelling power. Hollywood executives were stunned that a nearly 3-hour-long film rated R, requiring minors to be accompanied by a guardian, could attract such massive audiences. At that time, audiences were changing their habits. They were willing to spend money on films with psychological depth and powerful narratives, not just simple entertainment. This moment marked a key turning point, shifting the film industry from smaller productions to multi-million-dollar mega projects, laying the groundwork for the modern Hollywood studio business model. Number 14. Marlon Brando created Vito Corleone. In 1971, Marlon Brando was widely considered a washed-up actor and notoriously difficult to work with. The studio Paramount Pictures strongly opposed casting him as Vito Corleone. To convince them, Brando secretly filmed a screen test at his own home. He darkened his hair using black shoe polish, stuffed cotton balls into his cheeks to create the sagging face of a bulldog-like figure, put on an old robe, and completely changed his way of speaking. When studio executives watched the footage, they didn't even recognize that it was Brando. To maintain the distinctive facial shape on set, a dentist created a special mouthpiece called a plumper that Brando wore during filming. The character's iconic hoarse whispering voice was inspired by real-life mob boss Frank Costello. After Brando listened to recordings from the Kefauver Committee hearings, instead of heavy prosthetic makeup, Brando relied on simple everyday objects to transform himself. His performance, showing immense power through calmness and a soft voice, redefined the image of a mafia boss in cinema. Today, the legendary plumper is preserved in a film museum as proof of one of the most brilliant character creations in movie history. Number 13. The little midget who defied the studio at the time. Al Pacino was an unknown stage actor with a small physical presence. Executives at Paramount Pictures wanted bigger stars like Jack Nicholson, Robert Redford, or Warren Beatty to play Michael Corleone. Studio executives reportedly mocked Pacino as that little midget and pressured the production team to fire him during the very first week of filming. Early footage of Pacino was criticized as dull, lifeless, and lacking the presence expected of a future mafia boss. Director Francis Ford Coppola risked his entire career to protect Pacino, betting everything on the restaurant scene. In this pivotal moment, Michael commits his first act of violence, killing Solozzo and Captain McCluskey. Pacino delivered a chilling performance, transforming from nervous and trembling to eerily calm before pulling the trigger. When studio executives saw Pacino's cold, calculating stare in the rough cut of that scene. They finally stopped searching for a replacement. Pacino proved that Michael Corleone didn't need a physically imposing actor. He needed someone who could portray a quiet explosion of darkness from within. Without Coppola's persistence against studio pressure, cinema history might have lost one of the greatest performances in crime film history. Number 12. The slap heard around the world. In a scene where singer Johnny Fontaine begs for help, Vito Corleone suddenly stands up and slaps him, shouting, "You can act like a man!" This moment was not in the original script, and actor Al Martino, who played Johnny, had no idea it was coming. Marlon Brando intentionally delivered the slap without warning to create a real sense of humiliation for the character. Martino, who was primarily a professional singer with little acting experience, reacted with genuine shock and trembling fear. What audiences see on screen is completely real. Later, Martino admitted he was genuinely intimidated by Brando's commanding presence in that moment. The slap carried a deeper message central to the film. The Godfather's kindness always comes with strict expectations of honor and loyalty. This small, improvised detail made the scene incredibly authentic, without needing additional dialogue. It also established a rule that many later Mafia films would follow. Family intimacy and brutal violence often coexist, sometimes separated by nothing more than a sudden slap. No. 11. The stray cat that stole the scene. In the iconic opening scene inside the office, Vito Corleone is seen stroking a small cat while listening to Bonacera's request. In reality, the cat was never part of the script. Director Francis Ford Coppola found the stray wandering around the Paramount Pictures studio lot and handed it to Marlon Brando just before filming began. Brando, well known for his love of animals, simply held the cat and began acting naturally as if it had always been part of the scene. The cat created a powerful visual contrast, a gentle father figure petting a fragile creature, while calmly ordering violent punishment for his enemies. However, a technical problem quickly appeared. The cat's loud purring interfered with the audio recording, making Brando's dialogue difficult to hear. The production team later spent hours fixing the sound and had Brando re-record his lines in post-production. This random moment turned Vito Corleone into the image of a resting predator, creating one of the most iconic visuals in film history. It also proves something filmmakers know well. Sometimes the most unforgettable moments in cinema happen completely by accident. Number 10. The enforcer who didn't know how to act. The terrifying hitman Luca Brasi was played by Lenny Montana, one of the most intimidating figures in The Godfather. In reality, Montana was not a professional actor. He was a former professional wrestler with an enormous physique and had worked as a bodyguard for members of the real-life Colombo crime family. When Montana arrived on set to film the scene where Luca Brasi congratulates the Godfather, he became extremely nervous, standing face-to-face with Marlon Brando. He repeatedly forgot his lines and stumbled over his words, instead of removing him from the scene. Director Francis Ford Coppola came up with a clever solution. He added a short scene showing Luca Brasi sitting outside in the garden, nervously rehearsing his speech before meeting Vito Corleone. This decision transformed Montana's real nervousness into a powerful storytelling detail. It also elevated the almost mythic authority of Vito Corleone, suggesting that even a ruthless killer would feel intimidated in his presence. What could have been a mistake by an inexperienced performer instead became an unforgettable moment of character development. No. 9. The word Mafia never appears. Although The Godfather is widely considered the definitive Mafia film, the words Mafia and Cosa Nostra are never spoken in the movie. This was the result of tense negotiations between the filmmakers and Joe Colombo. The leader of the Italian-American Civil Rights League, Colombo feared the film would damage the public image of Italian Americans. In response, He organized protests and reportedly threatened executives at Paramount Pictures to ensure filming could continue smoothly in New York. Producer Albert S. Ruddy met with Colombo and agreed to remove the terms Mafia and Cosa Nostra from the script. The studio also promised to donate proceeds from the premiere to a hospital supported by the organization. Ironically, the absence of these terms made the film more subtle and sophisticated, rather than naming the organization directly. The story communicates power through actions, relationships, and the mysterious structure of the Corleone family. 8. The Deadly Omen of Oranges. Observant viewers have noticed a disturbing pattern throughout The Godfather. Whenever oranges appear on screen, death or disaster soon follows. Oranges sit on the table of the producer Willis just before he discovers the horse's head in his bed. They scatter across the street during the assassination attempt on Vito Corleone. They appear during the meeting of the 5 families, and finally in Vito's hands shortly before he collapses and dies in the garden. Originally, the oranges were simply a visual choice by production designer Dean Tavoularis to add color contrast to scenes dominated by dark tones. Later, Francis Ford Coppola realized the symbolic potential and deliberately turned oranges into a recurring visual motif, signaling danger or death. The contrast between a bright, lively fruit and the brutal violence surrounding it created a haunting cinematic symbol. This subtle detail became one of the most famous hidden patterns in film history and has influenced many later directors who use visual motifs to foreshadow a character's fate. 7. The mysterious connection to Frank Sinatra. The character Johnny Fontaine in The Godfather is widely believed to have been inspired by legendary singer Frank Sinatra. In real life, rumors circulated that Sinatra had relied on Mafia connections to secure a role in From Here to Eternity, which revived his struggling career. This closely mirrors the story in the film, where Johnny Fontaine asks Vito Corleone to pressure a Hollywood producer into giving him a movie role. When the novel by Mario Puzo was published, Sinatra was reportedly furious about the character. The tension reached a peak at Chasen's restaurant in Los Angeles, where Sinatra confronted Puzo directly. Witnesses claimed the singer shouted insults and accused the writer of spreading rumors and betraying him. Although Puzo insisted that Johnny Fontaine was a composite character inspired by several entertainers, the similarities were strong enough to spark lasting speculation about the connection. 6. The Corleone Wedding. When fiction became reality. The famous opening wedding scene of The Godfather was filmed at a private estate on Staten Island and took several days to complete. To achieve authenticity, Francis Ford Coppola hired hundreds of local Italian Americans as extras. They did not need to perform complicated acting. They simply ate, danced, and talked the way they would at a real family celebration. The food on the tables was also real, prepared by local cooks rather than artificial props commonly used in film production. The environment became so convincing that members of the real-life Colombo crime family reportedly blended into the crowd to observe the filming. Coppola also included members of his own family in the production. His sister, Talia Shire, played Connie, the bride, while his infant daughter, Sofia Coppola, appeared as the baby in the baptism sequence near the end of the film. The combination of the director's real family and the authentic local community created a cultural realism that made audiences feel as if they were witnessing an intimate private event inside the Corleone family, rather than watching a staged movie scene. 5. Gordon Willis, the Prince of Darkness. Cinematographer Gordon Willis revolutionized the visual style of The Godfather by using extremely dark lighting. He intentionally placed lights high above the actors so that shadows would fall across their faces, often obscuring their eyes, especially those of Vito Corleone. This technique suggested mystery, secrecy, and the hidden schemes inside the minds of powerful crime bosses. The film was also tinted with a distinctive amber tone to evoke the atmosphere of the 1940s. Executives at Paramount Pictures were alarmed when they saw the early footage. They feared the images were so dark that audiences might think their televisions or projectors were malfunctioning. Studio leaders repeatedly pressured Willis to brighten the actors' faces and even threatened to fire him. Willis refused to compromise his artistic vision. His determination eventually earned him the nickname, the Prince of Darkness. His lighting style later became a defining visual standard for crime films and influenced works such as The French Connection and the television series The Sopranos. Number 4. The costly toll booth massacre. The scene in which Sonny Corleone is ambushed and brutally gunned down at a toll booth remains one of the most violent and expensive sequences in The Godfather. To film a scene that lasts just over a minute, the production spent nearly $100,000, an enormous sum, in 1972. Actor James Caan wore a special vest containing 127 small blood packs, known as squibs, connected by electrical wires to simulate repeated gunshots. Each squib was triggered in precise sequence to create the horrifying effect of a body being torn apart by machine gun fire. Sonny's car was also pre-rigged with hundreds of small explosive charges to instantly produce bullet holes and destruction. Caan later admitted he was extremely tense during filming because if even one squib detonated incorrectly, the entire scene would have to be reset and filmed again at enormous cost. This sequence pushed the limits of violence in Hollywood cinema, moving away from implied violence toward a far more direct and brutal depiction that shocked audiences at the time. Number 3. The real horse head in the bed. One of the most famous moments in The Godfather occurs when film producer Jack Woltz wakes up to discover a severed horse head in his bed. The terror seen on the face of actor John Marley was genuine. During rehearsals, the production used a fake plastic horse head. However, director Francis Ford Coppola felt it looked unrealistic. He reportedly arranged for a real horse head to be obtained from a pet food processing facility where a horse was already scheduled for slaughter. The head was delivered to the set packed in ice and secretly swapped with the prop just before filming. When the cameras rolled, Marley unexpectedly touched and saw the real severed head, still covered with blood and carrying a strong odor. His scream in the scene was a natural reaction of shock and horror. After the film's release, animal rights groups strongly criticized the decision. Nevertheless, the moment became one of the most unforgettable scenes in cinema history and demonstrated Coppola's extreme dedication to realism. Number 2. The empty chair and the Oscar protest. At the 45th Academy Awards, The Godfather achieved major success, and Marlon Brando won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his portrayal of Vito Corleone. Instead of attending the ceremony, Brando staged one of the most shocking protests in Oscar history. He sent Native American activist Sachin Littlefeather to represent him on stage. When actor Roger Moore offered the Oscar statue, Littlefeather raised her hand and refused it while holding a prepared statement. In a brief speech lasting about 60 seconds, she explained that Brando was declining the award to protest the treatment and misrepresentation of Native Americans in Hollywood and the film industry. The audience reacted with a mix of boos and applause. Actor John Wayne, who was backstage at the time, was reportedly furious and had to be physically restrained from confronting Littlefeather. The moment transformed the Oscars forever, turning what had been primarily a glamorous celebration into a platform where artists could express powerful political and social messages. Number 1. The film nobody really wanted to make today. The Godfather is widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made. But in 1970, it was a project that Paramount Pictures barely respected. The studio originally planned to produce a cheap crime movie set in the modern 1970s, mainly to save money on costumes and historical sets. Several respected directors of the time, including Sergio Leone and Peter Bogdanovich, declined the offer to direct. Eventually, Francis Ford Coppola was chosen largely because he was a young director who was deeply in debt and willing to work for a relatively small salary. Throughout the production, Coppola faced the constant threat of being fired. Studio executives disliked the cast he chose, disliked the dark visual style, and disliked the slow pacing of the film. At one point, they even hired a backup director in case they decided to replace him. The persistence of artists like Coppola, Brando, and Willis ultimately protected the film from heavy studio interference. From a popular crime novel written by Mario Puzo, once dismissed as simple entertainment, and a film project few believed in, The Godfather overcame every obstacle to become a work that reshaped the language of cinema and secured a permanent place in film history.